My name's Corey McDermott, and I've been ghost hunting for about 5 years. I've been interested in the paranormal since I was real little. I always liked, scary movies or paranormal movies. I think one of the earliest I was seeing would have been like Ghostbusters, so that was a big help in getting me interested in that. The most significant experience I've had would be when we went up to it's a small family cemetery called Snyder's, and it was just a quick investigation we were doing, and we had the digital thermometer out, and we got like one real cold spot, and then the thermometer started jumping all over the place. Like the base temperature was like 30 degrees or something, but it was hitting down in like -15, and then it'd jump up to like 5, and then down to negatives, and it just kept going crazy. It was a good time. I'm probably the biggest skeptic out of the group. Um, I haven't seen enough or experienced enough to really believe in it anymore, and I've started becoming more of a skeptic because of the lack of evidence. Um, like I don't believe in like ghosts, maybe demons and possessions, no. Psychics, no, none of that. Some of the terms that come up with us would be like EVP, which is electronic voice phenomena, and that's where you take like a voice recorder and you start recording, you ask a question, and then no one makes a sound for like 10 seconds or so, and then once you wrap up the investigation while we're going over everything, you go back and you listen to it again and see if you can hear anything, because supposedly the voice recorder will pick up voices that the human ear can't pick up. So you listen to that and try to see if anything's trying to contact you that you wouldn't have been able to hear while you were there. And I think we have a few EVPs of that. Ghost versus poltergeist. From Ghost versus poltergeist. From a classical definition, ghost would just be someone that's haunting an area. It's just a spirit it's someone that left their imprint on our physical, on like our plane of existence. Poltergeist, supposedly interacts with people, and they're historically more violent. If things are getting moved around, or any sort of times where someone thinks that like they're being scratched or their hair's pulled or anything like that, that's usually poltergeist. There's two kinds of hauntings. There's residual, which is whenever a spirit, it'll do an act and it'll keep doing that. So if you go somewhere and someone says that, there's a ghost walking down their stairs like every night, then it'll do it. It does it every night. It just does the same thing over and over again. It doesn't necessarily have to be, every night, but it'll always be the same action. As opposed to an intelligent haunting, which would be similar to a poltergeist, sort of, like it'll try to interact with, like the occupants of the house or whatever. It might move objects around, or it'll pick stuff up, leave it somewhere else. It doesn't necessarily have to do the same thing over and over again. It'll just do whatever it really wants to try and communicate, or just because. My first home investigation was in Freeport at the Harbinson house. It wasn't really interesting, but it was a creepy environment because the lady there had all these porcelain dolls, and some of them were life-sized. So they have these glassy eyes, and they're all just staring at you. And we didn't really find anything. I mean, we took it seriously, like for the first half of the investigation, but at some point we just started goofing off. We ended up, trying to do an EVP in the bathroom, and we tried so hard to not laugh or anything until I ended up popping up, did you die in here? If you died, flush the toilet, and we all just lost it. So it's very hard sometimes to take everything seriously. I don't really have a most frightening experience per se, but the creepiest moment would probably be whenever we were doing a home investigation in Avonmore. And after about 1 or 2 in the morning, the phone would ring, and then the owners would pick it up, and there'd be no one there. And that continued for like every 10 minutes or so for about an hour, hour and a half. And it just kept happening over and over again. And it started getting really creepy. And there was just never an answer. No one answered on the other line. They'd hung it up. One of the earlier experiences I had, and it wasn't even a paranormal thing, but it kept me freaked out all the same, was at the family cemetery, Snyder Cemetery. And we were just, investigating, had our cameras out and everything, and off in the distance, there was a bunch of dogs barking and howling, and I don't like dogs, I'm afraid of them. And that just creeped me out so bad, because I thought that, it was some wild dogs just running through the woods, and they were going to come try to bite me.
My name's Corey Mickle. I've been ghost hunting for probably about 5-6 years now, and it's a pretty big, intricate part of my life right now. It started a long time ago, actually. There was a lot of just stuff that I could never explain, and I've always heard ghost stories and wanted to see if I could make any of them become real. Actually, no particular event. I just had some friends that were interested in it, and we sort of decided to give it a go. It's been fun ever since. The earliest paranormal experience I ever had was we were at our camp out in the woods, actually, and everybody was passed out around the fire, and it was getting low on fire, so I went out for some firewood, and I just had my cell phone light, just walking around, and I heard a voice coming out through the woods that said, "Mickle, come up here," and I wasn't quite sure what to do with it because it sounded just like one of my friends, but for some reason I just got a vibe not to go in that direction and went back, and sure enough, he was passed out by the fire. So yeah, that creeped me out a little bit. The best piece of evidence we ever got was actually in a residential investigation in Avonmore, and we were using this piece of technology called the Ghost Box, and it scans radio frequencies to tell you just random messages. It's a pretty nifty device, and we were getting some direct answers out of things, and it brought up one of our members of our group, and it said Adam, and we said, "What about Adam?" And it said he's in the kitchen, and sure enough, he was in the kitchen, and it just started listing particular details that he worked on heating and air and just some crazy stuff. That was a nice thing to hear. Unfortunately, I don't know too much about it yet. It's all experimental, and everybody has their own opinions on the matter. But from what I've seen and what I've noticed, I believe there's definitely something out there, and it's just a matter of time. You might go someplace 9 times, not catch a thing, and then the other time you might catch all sorts of stuff. It's great. First home investigation I already touched on briefly was about Avonmore. It was a residential house, and they were having some activity. They thought maybe it was the grandmother of the person in question. We went up there and set up some equipment, and we got some neat stuff. A lot of audio, some video we couldn't explain, loud popping noises and tapping, and some messages through the audio device. Most frightening was probably, well, we went to this investigation in Elwood City. It was very wooded behind the house. We were in between a shed and this other house, and we started asking questions, and the owner's dog actually started freaking out, started barking uncontrollably. We heard banging on all sides of the shed, and as soon as we would walk over to the shed, we'd hear banging on the building beside it, and we could not get any answers whatsoever. And then our ghost box actually said, "Don't make me kill you," clear as day, and that was it's quite an experience to hear. Everybody was kind of on edge after that. I walk into any house or place knowing I try to be a skeptic as much as possible, but some places you're definitely a believer. It just depends what occurs, and some things are just not explainable whatsoever, and you get some crazy stuff that happens, and it's a lot of fun. Do I ever go into a place and think I'm going to be hopeful to find something? I would say you really just never know what you're going to get. You walk into a place and it's you're hopeful that you'll find something big, but you also realize that you might be messing with something that is beyond your control. So it's always a gamble, but exciting, that's for sure.